This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Hi, welcome back to another GSMC Sports Podcast presented by GSMC Podcast Network. My name is Chris Blades. Before I get started today, I want to make sure I take the time to remind you guys to wash your hands, social distance, self-quarantine, stay home if you're sick. I mean, most places aren't open for business anymore unless you work in a medical field or at a grocery store or a bank or something. And to those people, we appreciate you. Obviously, your jobs have been rather hectic these past few weeks, maybe a month, depending on how serious your state took this originally. So we commend you for your work and also the continued work you're going to have to do over the next few months as we try to work through this as a country. I mean, at least the next few months, because we don't, even up and then through this week, people, not everywhere, but in certain states, people are still going outside and enjoying their life as if nothing is happening. So this might take a little longer than we would have hoped for, but again, the sooner we stay inside, the sooner we will then be able to go back outside. So just think of it like that. So I wanted to shout those people out first, and then obviously I wanted to make sure I remind you guys, if you haven't already, to subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you never miss an episode. Make sure I was on top when we drop our latest stuff. If you could please as well give us a 5-star rating, write us a nice review. Be very appreciated, very helpful. See what you guys like, what you guys don't like. And also, if you're on social media, we are there as well, so we can talk, we can chat, we can debate, we can discuss, and we can help each other get through this together. So, obviously, as we all know, the main thing going on currently is NFL free agency. I guess by the time you guys see this, would have been technically a week since it started. It became since legal tampering started on last Monday. So now we're a week into free agency. And obviously we've discussed most of the major moves and changes and trades and stuff that have happened. But there are still a few names out there that haven't found a home yet or could potentially be on the move in terms of trade options that I wanted to discuss. But first, before I do that, I wanted to make sure that I clarified for you guys. I think on the last episode when I was talking about the NBA giving away League Pass for free and the NFL giving away NFL Game Pass for a month, I might have said that for the Game Pass, they might have said only be through March 31st. It's actually May 31st. So, in case you didn't already know that, which you guys might have, but if you didn't, so you have more than a week, because obviously it would make no sense to give it away for free for a week and a half. So yeah, they're giving away through the end of May, I believe. So that's obviously a lot more time to catch up on the games, and obviously, like I said, you can go back watch games within the last 10 years, go watch all 22 film, coaches film, baldies, breakdowns, stuff like that. So a lot of content for you to watch through Game Pass if you so choose. Obviously, it's not you're not forced to do that, but again, with a lack of options out there, we saw for live viewing, gives you guys something else to watch. But as I was saying, the NFL free agents that are still currently available. So the biggest, I don't want to say the biggest. It's hard to say for sure who's the biggest left, because I guess that all that is really kind of relative based on who your team needs, I guess you could say, not what you're looking for. But one of the bigger free agents still available is former Texan and former Seahawk, I guess for the time being, unless he goes back, pass rusher Jadeveon Clowney. Now, he's a guy who obviously coming in to, last year he got franchise tagged by the Texans. Then they traded him. Obviously, we talked about that and some of the interesting moves Bill O'Brien has made over the last year and change since he's been in charge as the GM. So he got traded to the Seahawks. It was kind of like a weird year because he still wasn't bad, but like he didn't really have like the sack numbers you'd want. I think he only had something like he only had 3 sacks on the year. I know he missed some time, but yeah, because he missed 3 games, was dealing with like a core muscle injury throughout the season, so that obviously hampered him, but still helped the team in some degree get to the playoffs. They went to the playoffs, maybe won a playoff game. Obviously, he was a part of the whole like dirty, not dirty, depending on who you ask, hit on Eagles quarterback Carson Wentz that knocked him out of the game, and obviously that helped. I mean, there's no way to say that they wouldn't have won the game if he had played the whole game, but obviously playing against the back, especially knowing now that Josh McCown was playing through, I think, tears in his hamstring, I believe it was. Regardless, he was dealing with some sort of leg injury, and obviously that hurts when you're a quarterback. You need to be able to move a little bit, but their options were pretty limited at that point. They would have had to go down to, I think Greg Ward was probably the emergency quarterback. He would have had to run Wildcat all game. It would have been a mess. But yeah, so then helped them win a playoff game. Was thinking coming into this free agency period he was going to get a big contract from somebody, and now a week in, still not a whole lot of movement, really not even a whole lot of like rumors out there. I mean, I know it sounds like Seattle wants to bring him back, but obviously, not to say obviously, but it's possible that he is asking for more than what the Seahawks think he's worth. Because obviously, through the 1 year there, missed 3 games, only had 3 sacks, only had 7 tackles for loss, only 13 quarterback hits. So, I mean, again, not like he lit up the world in Seattle this past season, though. Again, it's still a useful piece to their team, so they're not going to overpay for him. And obviously, again, coming off that, other teams around the league aren't going to overpay for him as well because they know that he's a guy that he's never had double-digit sacks, I think. Yeah, the highest he's ever had is 9.5 in 2017. Though he's been selected, he was selected 3 straight Pro Bowls before this past season, but still, again, not really like a big sack guy, and that's obviously what gets people paid is sacks, and if you're a corner, like interceptions and pass breakup, stuff like that. Like not having a good. I don't want to say like that because being good analytically, like having a good PFF grade or like being high on like pressure rates and stuff like that matters at the same time. But for some of these teams that aren't as analytically driven, they like to look at the hard numbers. So like stuff like sacks is easy to see. Like, oh, how many times did he sack the quarterback? How many times did he affect the quarterback? Whether that's hits, hurries, whatever. Now, it's like I said, coming off this season, he couldn't really expect a big contract because he didn't really put up the numbers, which is why I think they're kind of in this weird position. Because I know Seattle wants. I knew there were some rumors about the Giants, maybe. I know the Titans. I know they traded Jarrell Casey away, so they can maybe use a pass rusher, and Clowney can line up on the outside, he can line up on the inside. So he's versatile in where he can line up for them, and obviously Mike Vrabel coming from, though not necessarily a coach under Belichick, but coming from that Belichick mindset of being flexible on defense, that I would imagine they'd be willing to move him around, so that could be an interesting fit. But it just seems like he's kind of stuck in a weird place where he wants more than he's probably worth, and thus, at least worth in the eyes of the other people, because obviously you're worth whatever somebody's willing to pay you. So if somebody was willing to pay him $16, $17, $18 million, then all right, that's what he's worth. But if somebody's only willing to pay him $14, $13, $12 million in a year, then all right, that's what he's worth. It's all relative. Like I said, you're worth what somebody's willing to pay or what somebody's willing to give up for you. I mean, he wasn't even traded. He was only traded for like a third, I think, and like some players. So it's not like it's not like the Seahawks have like a lot invested in him. It's not a Jalen Ramsey situation where they traded 2 first-round picks or even traded like 1 first-round pick. Like they didn't give up a whole lot in terms of capital. So again, which is like a 1-year thing to see how it works. It didn't go terribly, but again, they're not necessarily highly invested into him, so they're not going to overpay and then obviously hurt the rest of their team. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. I would imagine that'll get resolved sometime this week, but you never know with these things. Could drag out for a little bit. The same thing could be happening to Robbie Anderson of the Jets, who is another guy that I think is is a prisoner of what many people believe is a very stacked draft class at the receiver position, at least. Just because, like, not really that many. I mean, Amari got his money, but that was kind of obvious. We saw Stephon Diggs got traded. We saw DeAndre Hopkins got traded. Emmanuel Sanders got signed, who we'll talk about in a second. I guess we'll talk about him more in the next segment. Randall Cobb got his money, which was interesting, but again, Texans, so don't really know if they always make the right decision on these kind of things. Because, again, trading away DeAndre Hopkins still makes no sense to me. Even after a week of sitting on it, still not a mind-boggling. But again, if their relationship was bad and there's no way to fix it, then I guess, okay, you got to trade somebody. Or you could fire the coach. It's one of the two. They chose not to fire the coach. Again, the coach is the GM, so that's kind of weird how that would work. But yeah, so I'm saying it's not like a whole lot of receivers have gotten big money. Like, the receiver market wasn't that extensive to begin with. And then obviously there hasn't really been a whole lot of movement on it. And thus here we are. Where a guy like Robbie Anderson, who thought he could be getting a big payday, is now, like I said, a week since the legal tampering period opened, still unsigned. And it sounds like he's a guy, and it's just like one of those things where, like, is he going to be willing to budge on his number? Because if he's not, then this may continue to drag out a little further. Because, again, it doesn't seem like, at this point, if someone was willing to overpay you, they probably would have overpaid you at this point. You see, that's what the first couple of days of free agency are for. Guys get signed to big deals, big contracts all over. And for whatever reason, he hasn't gotten that yet. So, it's interesting to see what happens with that. I know it sounds like the Jets wanted to re-sign him, but the fact that it hasn't happened yet is a little strange. Because usually if guys want to get re-signed, if teams make guys priority to be re-signed, then they usually get signed pretty quickly. It just doesn't normally drag on for long periods of time. Again, if both sides want to work on something, I guess, unless you're Dak. But then again, he had franchise tag, so there is that. But again, normally, if a team wants to be back and a player wants to be back, they figure something out. So that hasn't happened yet. I know a team like the Eagles has been rumored to be interested, though. Again, they're not gonna. I don't think they're gonna give out big money for him, because again, if they were, they would have done it already. Maybe like the Broncos could be interested. They could use some speed opposite Cortland Sutton. Obviously, if the Niners weren't able to get Emmanuel Sanders re-signed, they could maybe use a receiver. So yeah, he's had some options out there, but again, this is going on this long for a reason. If his number is too high, then he's going to stay out there for a little bit. And again, I mean, I think that's the thing when no one, like, as outside of Amari, who really never, he technically was a free agent, but I don't know how truly he was available on the open market. Like, all the big moves at the receiver position have been through trades, and there could still be more. I know there's rumors about, like, Odell potentially. I mean, there's always rumors around Odell. There's not like concrete rumors right now. There's stuff towards the end of the season talking about that. So we'll see if anything happens with that. But yeah, the biggest moves have really been through trades. Just because, like, the free agent, in terms of big name receivers, was kind of barren. And then also, like I said, there's a potentially historic, in many people's eyes, draft class. No one's going to spend big on free agent when they think they could get a good guy in the second, third round of the draft this year. Like, why would you throw $10, $12, $15 million at a receiver? That's, like, good, but not great. Like, Robbie Anderson is a solid receiver, but he's not, like, anything to break the bank over. I mean, he's never had more than 63 catches. He's never had more than 7 touchdowns. He's never had 1,000 yards in his 4 years in the league. So again, he's a good deep threat. Has averaged at least 14 yards a catch every year of his career. Like I said, he's fast, he's big, he's 6'3". Had some little off the field situations early on in his career, but not anything too recently. But yeah, so he's a guy that can be useful in the right role, but again, he's not a Julio Jones. Oh, who was another guy there was a rumor out there about him being traded. I don't think that's going to happen, but we'll see. But he's not like Julio Jones. He's not a DeAndre Hopkins. He's not a Odell. He's not a Michael Thomas. Like, he's not that kind of guy. So you're not going to give big money to you shouldn't give big money, let me say, to good, not great guys. That's what happens in free agency. Good, not great guys get paid big money all the time. But again, due to the fact that he may be valued himself a little bit higher, is why he hasn't been signed yet. So we'll see if and when, when he does get signed, what it looks like, who's it with. Because I do think, obviously, he's going to end up on a team somewhere, but I think this is one that could draw out a little bit long, because at this point, there's not a whole lot of movement going on in the free agency in terms of receivers. So it's not like you're waiting for someone else to get a deal, try to gauge how high or how low your number should be, because not really that many big deals that are going to get signed, I don't think, out there right now. So it's just one of those things where he just has to find out what his number is and find a team that's willing to pay that, or find a way to compromise. So we'll see about that. And obviously the last one I want to touch on was Jameis, who seemed like he's gonna, like the Bucks, that's gone obviously with Tom Brady being there, not going to the Bears. Doesn't sound like the Patriots are going to bring him in at this moment. We'll see. With that, sound like the Chargers are going to move ahead with Tyrod and a rookie, so it doesn't seem like it's going to be a fit there. Miami's going to draft a rookie, so it's like where you could be. And someone pointed out, which would be kind of interesting, though again this is all dependent on their feelings on Taysom Hill, but someone mentioned like him going to the Saints, being the back there for a year, learning from Drew Brees, because obviously Drew Brees is a guy that's very accurate, very precise with his passing, and obviously doesn't turn the ball over that much, which has been Jameis' biggest issue. So if he could take in, even if he doesn't stay there, take in what he's learned for Jam, and you see what it did to Teddy Bridgewater, him being there for 2 seasons, he was able to parlay that into a starting job off of 5 games this year. He got paid like $20 million a year to be the new quarterback of the Panthers. So maybe James could take some of that same wisdom and utilize it to his advantage. I don't know. It'd be interesting, but it's just something I saw floated out there on Twitter, and that's not a bad fit, just because, like I said, he's still pretty young. Again, Drew Brees isn't going to be there forever. It's not like he's going to be sitting behind him forever. Then, hey, maybe he can compete with Taysom Hill for a starting job, and if it doesn't work out, then maybe he can go somewhere else. Because, like I said, I mean, there's always spots open around the league, and there will be. So it's not like James will never have another shot to be a starter. I don't think like I said, he's too young to not have that opportunity. But it just may not be this season, and if he's willing to accept that, then all right, he might have a place to go in New Orleans. Though obviously there's no real guarantee there. But like I said, the spots where there could be quarterbacks are kind of drying up. Like I said, Chargers not doing anything. Bears got their quarterback in Foles. Panthers are looking to move on from Cam. So there's like Andy Dalton's looking to be moved. So there's other quarterbacks out there that are looking to be moved. On top of the fact that, like I said, teams like the Chargers, who could use a quarterback, seem to be good with Tyrod for the time being. Patriots just brought in Brian Hoyer again, have Stidham, so we'll see what they choose to do. There's not really that many spots left for starting quarterbacks out there. And that's what I assume James would want to be, but I'm saying the options are pretty limited right now, so he's going to have to get what he can get. And maybe the best spot might be for him to back up Drew Brees for a year. And then take over the reins from him, potentially, if Sean Payton decides that's what he wants to do. But yeah, so we'll see what happens with Jameis. But like I said, he's another one that maybe will get signed this week, maybe he won't. Like I said, with him, there's not really, I don't know how much urgency there's going to be is on a movement with him, just because, like I said, it's not like he's going to go anywhere. It's not like these openings are going to go anywhere. Like what teams have right now is going to be, in terms of those places that are open are still going to be open in a week's time. Places that aren't available obviously are going to change in a week's time. So it's just like, I don't know how much of a rush there is. But we'll see what happens with him. So yeah, those are a couple of the guys that I want to touch on that could potentially, we could see some action with them this week. And I'll keep my eyes, and you guys will keep your eyes on that, and we'll talk about it whenever it does go down. But after this break, I want to come back and talk about the deals, some of the deals that have gone down that weren't necessarily front page, bottom take ESPN, everything's like getting put on there because it's, again, no other sports. But it wouldn't normally be like front page news, like some of the under the radar moves, in my opinion. At least maybe you don't feel like that for your team. You thought it was like a big move for your team, but on the grand scheme of things, there were a couple moves that I liked, that I thought that could be a little bit under the radar in terms of like national news. Now I want to touch on. So we'll talk about those right after the break. So stay tuned.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Network, and as I said, I wanted to touch on some of the unheralded, under the radar moves, if you will, in NFL free agency that have gone down so far. At least just in terms, like I said, we know about the big trades. We know about the Byron Joneses, the Tom Brady's, those kind of big moves that everyone obviously paid attention to. These are a couple ones that may have slipped through the cracks a little bit that I think we need to get touched on. And these aren't necessarily in any particular order in terms of best to worst, kind of or my top 5 or whatever, just because it's hard to pinpoint those kind of things at this point in the. I don't like when anybody does that when you do that with trades, you grade a trade before it plays out, or the draft, you grade a draft before the guys get on the field. You think you may know how it may work out, but again, until they get out there, you never really know. So it's hard to. That's kind of what the sports media does. They kind of like to be first to be I think this is going to work, or I don't think this is going to work, and that's entertaining to a degree, but I don't really see the advantage of doing that just because. Again, you really don't know until the games start playing. I guess and all he does is just provide evidence for people to either be hey, you were right, or for you to tout yourself hey, look, I was right about this, or people to just old takes expose you later on. So it's unless that's your thing, then I don't really see the point in that. So, as I was saying, one of them was the Ravens trading for Calais Campbell, and they didn't give up much, only gave up a 5th round pick. And obviously, I understand that Calais Campbell's on the older side. He's 33. He still can be useful. He had a down year last year, but the whole Jacksonville team had a down year, so that's not really that surprising. Still came away with 6.5 sacks. Still had 25 quarterback hits. And 2 seasons before, before I did that, so 10 tackles for loss. And 2 seasons before that, he had 14.5 and 10.5 sacks, the 2 highest marks of his career. So, again, you could say, and obviously a part of that was they traded Jalen Ramsey, so obviously the secondary being worse can hurt the pass rush and vice versa. So, and obviously again the whole team is kind of inconsistent throughout the year. So again, you don't want to hold against them too much, but from a Ravens standpoint, you're a team that was great last year. Don't really have that many holes outside of maybe receiver. They traded away a tight end, got a pick back for that. Especially when he was really a 3rd tight end, Hayden Hurst, which is funny how a 1st-round pick could drop to 3rd on the depth chart. Surpassed by a guy that I think they drafted. I think him and Mark Andrews were in the same draft class, and it was evident to me when it happened that Mark Andrews was the better guy, because I just watched him a lot, obviously, at Oklahoma. What he was able to do, I think he was there at Baker's last year, so what he was able to do at Baker. So I thought he was going to be the better guy. And then obviously that's clearly how it's worked out with the Ravens so far. Then they have him. They have the Nick Boyle, I believe his name is. So yeah, they didn't really need Hayden Hurst, though. I guess they're going to need to fill that role somehow with because they use 3 tight ends a lot, but it's neither here nor there. So yes, Calais Campbell. Just to add to their defense, bring a little bit more leadership. Not that they need a lot. They have Earl Thomas. You have Matthew Judon, who's been there for a little while. Marcus Peters, depending on how you view him as leader, though he was really good for them after he got acquired. Obviously, they have Lamar Jackson, have Mark Ingram, so just another vet another presence on that team, and obviously a guy that can be useful. I mean, every team could use a guy that can get you 7 sacks a year. It doesn't matter who you are. You can never have too many pass rushers, as most teams will say. You can never have too many pass rushers. So, again, being able to trade for one, even though, again, he's a little bit older, but all you got to do is just hope he's good this year. You're not really worried about 3-4 years down the line. Just worried about this upcoming year. And if you can be good for you this year, so give you 6.5, 7 to 8 sacks for a 5th-round pick, that's not really, I don't see really the downside of it. Unless you're just completely falling off a cliff, which isn't impossible, but unlikely to me at this stage. So there's that. Similar concept with Gerald McCoy, who is 32 now. Calais Campbell was 33, but he's 32, got signed by the Cowboys. And he was a guy that was obviously in Tampa for a while, went to Carolina this past year. Didn't have a great year, but still, like I said, still 5 sacks, 7 tackles for loss, 13 quarterback hits. So can still be useful from that standpoint. And then, obviously, again, another similar situation. He did this with Michael Bennett last year, bringing a vet guy. Michael Bennett was good for them in spurts last year. Obviously, had to make up somehow, though he's obviously not an edge rusher, but got to make up for the loss of Robert Quinn some way. And having a guy on the inside that can kind of help push the pocket, assuming, again, he hasn't fallen off a cliff, is always helpful. And like I said, bring some leadership to that side of the ball with a lot of young guys. Yeah, because obviously, so in secondary they're going to be going with, like I said, no Byron Jones. They left Jeff Heath walk. So going young there. Obviously got Van Der Esch, assuming his neck's all right. Jalen Smith. Maybe Sean Lee comes back. Who knows? Got Lawrence, obviously. But they could use a vet on that side. And obviously, they could use a little bit better defensive tackle play. They haven't really gotten consistent defensive tackle play outside of, I think, the one guy, Woods. For the last couple of years, he's been solid for them, but again, they haven't really gotten excellent defensive tackle play in a while. So, who knows? Maybe he could have a resurgence there, a little bit of a resurgence. Obviously, not expecting him to get 15 sacks, be Aaron Donald, but as be a solid contributor, useful player. It's not impossible. And like I said, the Cowboys did need defensive tackle help, so it makes sense from their standpoint. So you got that. You got, who else? Emmanuel Sanders, who, like I said, we're going to talk about, but he's a guy that I actually think will be very useful, especially for a team like the Saints, who has been, I don't know how hard they've been searching, but they've been in need of a guy opposite Michael Thomas for a couple of years now. They've gotten by without it, which, more credit to Michael Thomas and Sean Payton and Drew Brees, but having consistent number 2, in theory, would make their offense even better. And obviously take some pressure off of Michael Thomas. Where, Emmanuel Sanders is not at the point where you have to double team him consistently. That's not a thing. You're going to still focus mainly on Michael Thomas, but at the same time, he's a guy that can beat one-on-one coverage, can get open, can catch the ball. You saw obviously how much of a difference he made for the Niners last year after he got acquired. In 10 games, 9 starts, at over 500 yards and 3 touchdowns. So, like I said, and I think he had a big game against the Saints too, funny enough. So that's kind of interesting. But yeah, like I said, he's been a solid guy throughout his career, and like I said, even though he's a little older too, he's he's 33, just turned 33 a couple days ago. Yeah, so again, he's an older guy, but I'm not going to ask him to do a lot, and obviously he's not really much of a big burner, can still get past people, as we saw in the Super Bowl, where Jimmy G unfortunately overthrew him, but he was able to get behind the Kansas City defense, so he can do that, but obviously that's not what Drew Brees' game is anymore, though. Maybe that's what Taysom Hill can be used for, or Jameis, like we talked about. But obviously I guess that also allows more flexibility with Taysom Hill, because now you can have a situation where you don't need him. You have a solid number 2 receiver, so he's on most plays going to be the 5th option. And relatively speaking, he's better than most 5th option in a passing progression. So that can make things easier for him, make things easier for Jared Cook, make things easier for Alvin Kamara, make things easier for Michael Thomas. Like I said, you can't just leave Emmanuel Sanders on an island with your corner all the time, because again, he's going to get open, he's going to beat him, and obviously Drew Brees is very accurate. So it's not going to be just it's not something that I would risk. But again, you can't. There are very few times you can not double team Michael Thomas. So the times that you don't double team, he's going to be able to beat that 9 times out of 10, and then he'll be. Like I said, that's not something he will have had to deal. That's not something he's had the luxury of having over the last couple of years. Because again, it's just been like Ted Ginn. They tried like Traquan Smith, Keith Kirkwood. They tried a couple different guys out there opposite him, and no one's really stuck. So maybe Emmanuel Sanders can be a guy at least for a year or two. Can be a guy that can stick and then be a solid guy for them. And like I said, just give him. Doesn't need to have like 1,000 yards. Doesn't need to have 15 touchdowns or whatever. Just be a solid number 2. That's all they need. Just like a solid number 2. And I think Emmanuel Sanders can be that. Like I said, based off of last year and what he did for the Niners. And then if nothing else, maybe if they bring in another guy in the draft, whether it's like T. Higgins or like Chenault or somebody, he can help teach them, because obviously he's been a vet, been around, won a Super Bowl, I think. He was only on the Broncos Super Bowl team. I don't think he won. Yeah, he didn't win any with the Steelers. I think he got there after they won their Super Bowl. But yeah, won one with the Broncos. So had a couple of different 1,000-yard seasons in his career. So again, he's a solid receiver, been around for a while, so be a cool guy to learn from. And then the last guy I want to touch on, who I touched on a little bit, in terms of under the radar, is, like I said, Javon Hargrave for the Eagles, who, obviously, outside of people from Pittsburgh, or just unless you're a big defensive line guy, not too many people knew of him, had heard the name, and obviously didn't expect the Eagles to go out and get him, because that's not really one of their needs. They needed a corner, which they did address. They needed a receiver, which they did not address. Probably still need a starting caliber linebacker, because they just have a bunch of guys that should be on special teams, but some of those guys are going to have to start. So there is that. But yeah, Javon Hargrave is, like I said, he's going to be great next to Fletcher Cox. According to, this is from PFF. Last year, had a 76.8 pass rushing grade, which ranked 13th amongst all interior rushers, or interior defenders, sliding him just behind DeForest Buckner, who obviously had a very good season last year. Or, it was a part of the Niners defensive line that had a very good season last year. Generated 49 pressures on 345 pass rushing snaps during the season, which is a 14.2 pressure rate, which ranked him 3rd in the NFL for the position, behind only Aaron Donald and Chris Jones. And obviously those are two very good players at their position. He's gotten better every year. His passing grade's gone up every year. His overall grade from PFF's gone up every year. Obviously PFF is not the be-all and end-all. There's a lot of people, obviously they were talking about how I think they had Darius Slay ranked as like the 83rd best corner in the league last year, and there was a lot of players came out and said, ooh, that's bogus. No, he's top 5, top 10. Shaw's number 1 guy, and obviously the Lions pass rush was non-existent last year, so that hurts the corners a lot, and obviously that'll be different in Philadelphia. So like I said, now PFF isn't the holy grail, but it's just a good indicator to look at. And obviously, he's been a solid guy, like I said, gotten better every year, and he's not going to be relied to be the main guy. Again, they have Fletcher Cox, they have Malik Jackson he can rotate with, they could have Brandon Graham on the outside, they're potentially maybe getting Ngakoue, or trying to at least, no guarantee, but I know Ngakoue has done a lot of posting, trolling, whatever you want to call it, with Eagles pictures the last few days, and maybe that's just because he knows that Eagles fans are easy to rile up. Anybody posts a picture, mention their name in a rumor or a tweet or what anything, it'll get a stir out of them, and I think he's probably realized that. Or maybe he knows something. So we'll see what happens there. But if they add Ngakoue, then obviously that makes their pass rush even better, and that'll only make Javon Hargrave's life even easier. So that's another one who I think, because the Eagles have had some issues with their defensive tackle staying healthy. Obviously, Malik Jackson played like a half a game last year. Steven Jernigan's been in and out of the lineup since he got there in 2017. He was relatively healthy in 2017 for the most part, but then 2018, 2019 has been in and out of the lineup with different injuries. Even the guy they brought back, Hassan Ridgeway, he was good for them until he got hurt. Like they've had injuries at that position, so going out and paying guys to shore that position up makes sense. But at the same time, not something many people saw coming because they didn't really think they needed them, and maybe they don't. But again, you can never have too many pass rushers, in my opinion, or in the eyes of many other football coaches out there. So, like I said, it's never a bad thing. So those are just a few. Like I said, there's a few. It was like, I think that was 4. So 4 of the kind of underrated, under the radar signings that, again, may not have made like the front page if on like a First Take or like on NFL Network, but could be big for teams in their success or in their failure next year. Because again, if these guys hit, then they're going to be successful. If these guys miss, then obviously that could definitely hurt the team. So I just wanted to give those guys some love. After this break, we're going to do our, I guess not daily, obviously, because this podcast doesn't come out every day, but our episode update of the coronavirus in the sports world and how it's affecting things. And this time we're going internationally and talk about the Olympics. Obviously, we talked about the Olympics a little bit before, but there is a country that has already pulled out of the Olympics if they do not postpone it. We'll talk about who that country is, why they're doing it, and like what kind of the ramifications are, and maybe if we'll see other countries do that as well. So we'll talk about that right after this. Stay tuned.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Here again on the GSMC Sports Podcast, presented by GSMC Podcast Network. So you figured it was only a matter of time before countries unofficially or officially started pulling their athletes or saying they weren't going to go to the Olympics if it was not postponed. So again, this doesn't necessarily surprise me in that regard. But the first country to do that was Canada. So this is from ESPN. Canada won't send athletes to the Olympics in Tokyo unless the games are postponed by 1 year. The country's Olympic Committee announced Sunday night amid concerns over the coronavirus pandemic. While we recognize the inherent complexities around a postponement, nothing is more important than the health and safety of our athletes and the world community. The Canadian Olympic Committee said in a statement, "This is not solely about athlete health, it's about public health." The committee also said it was willing to help the IOC search for alternatives, but that it was not safe for athletes, their families, and the broader Canadian community for athletes to continue training for these games. In fact, it runs counter to the public health advice we urge all Canadians to follow, which is a fair point. Obviously, I don't know exactly what their rules and regulations and mandates are in Canada, because again, not in Canada. But I'd imagine not different than what's happening in America. Obviously, the isolation, stay inside, social distancing, don't go in big groups. If you're healthy, don't go to work. Work from home when you can. Stuff just like the typical stuff. So again, that'd be weird if you're doing that, but then also telling these athletes like, hey, go out, go to the gyms, train, work out with people, practice together, like that. That seems, like you said, that seems to run counter to what they're suggesting all Americans do. And then obviously, the more that these guys go out and expose themselves, the more they risk the rest of the country being exposed, or different. I mean, not the rest of the country, but like different people getting exposed. And that's obviously how the thing spreads. I've watched a couple different videos on it, but obviously, if you look at the way it like spreads from like one person to the next person, then that person spreads it to like 3 more people, then all those people spread it to like 5 people, and then just it grows from there. If there's a chain of like, if one person spread to 3 people, and then one of those 3 people isolates themselves, then they don't risk giving it to a bunch more people, and that's kind of just how it goes. So, like I said, isolation is important, but again, if these guys are training and going out and doing things to prepare for the Olympics, that again runs counter to basically every suggestion any health official has stated over the last 2 weeks to a month. So that'd be kind of weird. But again, Canada realizes this, and that's why they're saying that they wouldn't send their guys over to the Olympics unless it's postponed, which I completely understand. Canada is the first country, as I said, to threaten such a move in the face of the coronavirus pandemic. It joins a number of countries, including Norway, Brazil, and Slovenia, that have pressed the IOC on a possible postponement. After Canada's announcement, the Australian Olympic Committee said a delegation could not be assembled in the changing circumstances at home and abroad, and told its athletes to prepare for the Olympics to be held in 2021, which again seems reasonable. The chances of every country having this under control by like July, August seems pretty unlikely. So again, postponement, not cancellation. Postponement by a year, give Japan more time to get set up, give these I guess obviously this would be a weird time to give athletes more time to train or whatever, but again, if major sports leagues are going to be going back up during that time, then how could you have the Olympics go on during that time? It seems kind of, again, counter to like literally everything all health officials are saying at this point in time. Obviously, things may change in the next month or 2 months. Things may get better. Things may get worse. We really don't know with stuff like this. And obviously, this virus is a little bit unpredictable. So, again, it makes sense just to be like, hey, look, we're not going to risk it for our people. So, like I said, I'm not mad at Canada. I think more people should do that. More people probably will do that in the coming days if, again, the IOC does not do their own thing. And actually, funny enough, earlier Sunday, the International Olympic Committee announced that it will make a decision whether to postpone the 2020 Tokyo Games at some point in the next 4 weeks. Japan's Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, I'm not exactly sure, said Monday that a postponement would be unavoidable if the games could not be held in a complete way. And obviously they're set to begin July 24th and run through August 9th. And Canada sent 314 athletes to the 2016 games in Rio, which obviously had the whole Zika thing, but again, that was not nearly as bad as this. So yeah, obviously, and that's coming from so that's not to mention the Prime Minister mentioned that this might be unavoidable, and I'm saying if he's saying that, then I don't see how the IOC can be saying anything different. I don't even know why they need to wait 4 weeks. I guess they're just trying to hold out hope that things go well, but again, things may be going well in China or in South Korea, though obviously China had it for a lot longer than most other countries. Up until this point, obviously, countries will reach that point at some point. But you see what's going on in Italy. It's getting bad because people weren't taking it seriously. I don't think it's from some of the videos and stuff I've seen on social media, on the news about coming from Italy. People do not take it as seriously, and thus they're in the situation where they're at. And obviously, I think the USA is 7 to 10 days behind them, something like that. So hopefully we don't, but it's possible that we can see something looking like Italy, and obviously we're a much bigger country than Italy is, so it would be happening on a much grander scale if something like that if those numbers were to increase at the same rate. So yeah, there's that. So I'm saying there's no guarantee that all these different countries are going to have it together at this point. So the fact that the IOC is waiting 4 weeks, like I said, just them holding out hope that you don't have to postpone this, because obviously I'd imagine there's a lot of discussions or stipulations and arrangements that have to be made to postpone the games by a year. Honestly, then that means the next, I'm saying, how does that affect the next games? Does the 2024 games, do they still go on? Now, does everything get pushed back a year? It's an interesting dynamic on how that would work. Though, obviously, again, this would be, I guess this and the next Olympics were the only ones affected. So if they keep it in 2024, then obviously the athletes only have 3 years to prepare as opposed to 4, which is a big difference. And if they keep it at 4, then obviously every Olympics here would get moved back by a year, which doesn't really affect. I don't know how much 2028 preparations being done at this point. Though maybe there is some, but obviously again it just gives countries more time to prepare. So it'd be interesting to see kind of what happens with that, and also just kind of see if any other countries are willing to take a strong stance on this. Because obviously Canada was the first one to come out and say that, but I'm is America going to? They probably won't, but. Will America say anything? Will who else? Well, again, like I said, China has it under control. Will Italy come out and say we can't send people over there? Will do other countries in Europe say something? Will other countries in North America, like Mexico, will they say? It'd be interesting to see if other countries are going to be willing to say stuff as this virus continues to grow, continues to impact more and more lives around the world. Because again, it's not even just like the risk to the athletes. It's like, all right, so there's the risk to all the athletes there. Then it's the risk to all the people all their families that they're with. Then it's the risk to all the people that are at the games or at these events, like that are spectators. That'd be viewing, unless you're just going to do it with no fans, which would be kind of weird. And it's the risk to all of them. Then obviously when these guys leave, if they have it, then the rest of the people that they're coming in contact with when they come back from the States. So just be like, it seems like it would just be for the best, which I've already talked about, to just postpone the thing. But obviously, the more pressure the IOC faces, the more likely it is that they'll be postponed. But like I said, the Prime Minister of Japan already coming out and saying that a postponement may be unavoidable kind of leads me to believe that they're already preparing this, and then maybe they're taking, instead of like taking the 3 to 4 weeks to try to hope that it gets better, they're trying to figure out the arrangements for when they do have to postpone it and when they do have to make that announcement. That seems much more likely case to me at this point, because like I said, it doesn't seem like it is that reasonable to expect it just to be under control by the end of July. Across, like I said, not even just like, maybe in certain countries, alright, yeah, maybe it might be, but around the world, for it to be basically cleared out to where it's safe, seems unlikely to me. And again, I'm not a doctor. I'm not one of these, I don't know exactly what the technical term for these type of doctors are that study like pandemics and stuff like that, but I'm not one of them. I don't really know exactly how the virus is going to spread, even in America, let alone how it's going to spread around the world. So, and I don't know exactly how every country is what every country is doing to combat it. I know what some of them are doing, because I've been interested to see how other countries are handling this better or worse than America currently is. But like I said, it just seems like it's going to be a situation where we just gotta have to start getting prepared for the fact that there are not going to be any sports played until maybe at best September, when the football starts back up. And woo, buddy, if that gets pushed back, I and many other sports fans out there will be a mess. I don't know how much longer. I don't know if we can, like, sports that were happening and they got canceled or were about to happen and got postponed or whatever, we understand. But stuff that hasn't happened yet, they're still being affected in September, like, that'd be a different level. Pushing the season back to October, November, no one wants that. No one wants that at all. So that'd be a complete mess. So hopefully we're clear by then. But again, with a virus like this, you really don't know. So we'll see how that goes. But like I said, it seems like the Olympics aren't very likely to go down this year. And it's probably for the best. So after the break, we're going to come back. And we've talked about how the coronavirus has affected the players and the teams on the court in the NBA, but we haven't talked about how it's affected them off the court, and mainly in the pockets of the owners. So there's some more reports that have come out about that stuff. So I want to talk about that and potential losses the NBA may be facing and how that could affect not only this upcoming season, but seasons down the line. So we'll talk about all that stuff right after the break, so stay tuned.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's GSMCpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
aspect of the way in which the coronavirus may have hurt the NBA's bottom line that I wanted to touch on was from a Washington Post article that said the coronavirus could cost NBA $1 billion, bring about record salary cap dropped. So, this is from Ben Golliver, like I said, of the Washington Post. After the All-Star break, Adam Silver was asked about like Daryl Morey's tweets in support of protests in Hong Kong earlier and how that's obviously hurt the NBA's bottom line a little bit because they have a lot of fans, they have a lot of business sponsorships and stuff in China, and they obviously weren't happy about that. So that's been pulled out. So they've gotten a bit digged a little bit from that regard in terms of money. So that's about that and how it might cost the NBA $1 billion in revenue. And obviously, like Silver kind of pushed back and said that it was going to be millions of dollars, not billions, and probably around 400, maybe even less. But obviously, this new virus is not something that they expected, and it could potentially have an even greater financial challenge. In the article, he writes that it could push the NBA's revenue hit past the 1 million threshold, according to team executives and media estimates, should the rest of the regular season and postseason be canceled for a league that had enjoyed a decade of prosperity. The combination of the Hong Kong controversy and the coronavirus crisis represents an unprecedented and wholly unexpected financial challenge. Consider, over the last 35 years, the NBA salary cap, which is tied directly to the league's revenue, has shown annual declines just twice and has never been more than $2.3 million. Now, since Silvers took over, it's been even greater. Obviously, it's just continued to grow because of the media rights deals and stuff, which he touches on. When Silver stepped in as commissioner in 2014, the salary cap was, in February of 2014, the salary cap was $58 million. That number has nearly doubled to $109 million this season, thanks in large part to lucrative new media rights deals. The league's annual revenue now tops $8 billion, more than double what it was a decade ago. And it'll be hard to say exactly what the economic hit will be, but one high-ranking team executive said that the total damage could reach $40 million per team, or more than $1.2 billion if the playoffs are lost. And obviously, there's no guarantee that they will be yet, but there's also no guarantee that they're going to go down as scheduled. Well, I mean, they're already not going down as scheduled, but like they are going to go down as like sometime in June or July. Because again, that's contingent on how we as Americans handle this, and not everybody's handling it with the same vigor or respect that maybe the virus deserves. So it's hard to say exactly when everything's going to be completely good and and manageable. So it's hard to say exactly when they'll come back, and if they do come back, if they do the regular season, if they go straight into the postseason, if it's a shortened postseason, like we don't really know what's going to happen with that. And also, as per the number I just said, 583.com analysis estimated the lost revenue could exceed $1 billion if the NBA can't resume play, and that money adds up quickly. Gate receipts and ticket prices were widely based on market factors, but NBA teams average roughly $2 million of revenue per regular season home game. There have been 259 regular season games postponed, and the last year's playoffs saw an additional 82 games. Conservatively, that's nearly $700 million in lost game day revenue, which obviously is a big issue. And John Hollinger, writer for The Athletic and former Memphis Grizzlies executive, estimated that those losses could translate to salary cap decline of $8 million next year, easily the largest ever, even if Silver can get the playoffs to go on at some time, obviously later in the season. And Bleacher Report estimated that the salary cap could reach $15 million. The salary cap hit, I should say, could reach $15 million if the season is lost completely. And obviously such a big drop would have limited ramifications league-wide. You think about guys that are on max deals or just signed max deals, say like Siakam or Ben Simmons of the Sixers. They're signing extensions that were set to make up 25% of the cap, and obviously the cap's lower. That means their money that they're getting is lower because it's just, like I said, it's just a percentage, it's not like a specific like dollar amount. So that's a ding to them. And there's not really much. I mean, you can get like endorsement money or whatever, but it's not like Siakam doesn't really have that many endorsements. I know Simmons does have some, but neither of them are like big commercial guys either. So it's like they're losing money. Obviously, they still have a lot of money, so it's not like a big loss. But again, no one likes to lose money, whether it's players, executives, owners, whoever. No one likes to lose money. Just regular people. No one likes to lose business owners. Like no one in the world likes to lose money if they don't have to. So just losing out on money due to the fact that the salary cap dropped, that would obviously not be for the players, and obviously for free agents that are set to hit the market. Though this offseason wasn't supposed to be a big free agent one anyway. But again, there's always money to go around, and people will get big deals. But obviously, if the salary cap's lower, then those deals take a little bit of a hit. Because obviously these teams will have less money to spend. Even the teams that had money to spend will have less. Then the team that didn't have that much money to spend will have even less. And then accompanied with that, like obviously, like I said, there's no really max guys that are going to come out this year. So a lot of guys maybe will opt into their deals instead of opting out because they know that the money may not be there. So they might like opt into their deals, and now teams are on the hook for money and for players that they may not want. And some of these second tier guys may be forced to take 1-year deals and hope the money's available next summer, even though there'll be potentially more free agents available of a higher caliber next summer. So interested to see that. And then also, entering the season, the salary cap was expected to rise from $109 million to $116, and with the China protest stuff, that was expected to drop to $13 million. And obviously, up until recently, the people still expected the salary cap to rise. But again, if that doesn't happen, then now teams are in more trouble too. Now teams could feel the squeeze in multiple ways. As the cap declines, the luxury tax line would also decrease. The teams already projected to be at the luxury tax would have to pay more, potentially. And then teams hovering underneath the salary cap line, the luxury tax line, could now end up being over the tax, and that would be obviously a big thing, thereby forcing them to trim salary to avoid an unexpected bill next year. And these dynamics could lead to some owners to push for the NBA to maintain the salary cap at its current level, but its strategic approach would require successful negotiations from the Players Association. And obviously, like I said, that's issues that could very well hurt the salary cap come this summer. So yeah, that's just like I said, like there have been impacts already on the court, and this is now stretching into off the court, and again, no one wants to see their money messed with. Like I said, in any line of business, it doesn't matter where you are, what you're doing. And obviously, like we said, we're seeing that in this country now when people are trying to figure out how they're going to get paid with jobs being closed and people having to be laid off because they're not going to be, the businesses can't afford the hit of having them on the payroll if they're not going to be doing anything, and trying to figure out how to get people stimulus packages or stimulus whatever to be able to afford groceries and rent and mortgage payments and stuff like that. So see, like I said, and the average person's having issues with their money, and they don't even have that much money to begin with. So when you have guys that are billionaires, millionaires, even though they have more money to lose potentially, these are the guys that don't want to lose anything. They try to find every loophole in every way they can to make as much money as possible. And now they may not be able to do that. And like I said, and then it hurts the players too, because now they can't get paid as much, or they may end up getting traded or get moved, and they didn't really necessarily have to get moved because, again, people don't want to pay the luxury tax, or now the salary cap's tighter, so teams are stressed and struggling, trying to figure out how they're going to get people paid. It could be a whole mess with that. So that could be a major issue that the NBA is going to have to deal with very, very soon, and just again how that could impact this upcoming summer. And then another thing was the fact that players may not even be getting paid through the rest of the year, or the rest of the season, I should say. So there was an article that came out, this is from Woj and ESPN, that NBA to pay players full salaries due April 1st, uncertain after. So the NBA plans to deliver players their full salaries due on April 1st, but left open the possibility of recouping future salaries for canceled games on April 15th, according to a league memo shared with teams on Friday. As the coronavirus pandemic paralyzes the NBA nation, blah, 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 the canceled games and the lost revenue causing the league to leave itself financial flexibility based on the force majeure provision in the collective bargaining agreement. Force majeure, I believe that's how it's pronounced, don't quote me, allows for the withholding of 192.6, that's a weird fraction, of a player's seasonal salary per canceled game based upon catastrophic circumstances, the companies like war, natural disaster, epidemics, pandemics, which obviously they are part of. And for this purpose, the league considers each team to have played 5 preseason games, 82 regular season games, and 5.6 playoff games. The NBA plans to inform teams and players ahead of the April 15th payment date, which obviously isn't for a little bit, about the league's intentions, but the players on payment schedule of 12 installments that began November 15th will have been paid 9% of their salary after April 1st payments, and the people that chose to get paid out over the calendar year, obviously have it spread out, not just have it paid out through the season, will still be rejected to have 60% of their salary still be owed to them after April 1st. So that's a lot of money that people could not be getting paid if they decide to enforce that. Obviously, there's no guarantee, and I don't think they will. But just one of those things. If the NBA chose to exercise this to reflect the games missed, the league could pay the players later if those games were made up during a later assumption of play. Most players are paid in 24 checks annually, and the first 12 checks include the 10% escrow tax. Even before the outbreak, the league had been projecting that players would not receive 100% of their escrow back, just because, again, they're losing money. That's the thing where now not only like I said, I talked about before how that could be affecting players, but now this is affecting players more immediately. Obviously, free agency is one thing because that's down the line. But this is more immediate in terms of, like, now these guys may not be getting their full paychecks or all their paychecks and stuff, and that's, I don't think any player's going to want that. So, it's just, I don't think that'll happen. I wouldn't be shocked if the owners wanted to do, but again, the NBA has done everything right up until this point in terms of trying to get all this stuff figured out. So I would be shocked if they chose right now to be like, yeah, we're just going to screw all this up. That would just seem very weird to me. Not to say that it can't happen or that it won't happen, but again, it would just be surprising to me if after everything Adam Silver and the NBA has done right in terms of this, like being the first league to cancel games, being the first league to, like, obviously have somebody test positive for it, but again, to be on top of everything, to be like, now would be the time where they mess things up and, like, now they don't pay their players the full thing, which again is something that's going on with most other Americans throughout the country. So it wouldn't be a new thing for them, but it just seem like a weird thing for an organization that big, and obviously one that has a leader with such a great reputation amongst the players. That would be obviously a stain on his resume a little bit. So I would be shocked if that happens. But again, you never know. These owners aren't going to pay people for stuff that's not going to happen. And like I said, if there's a chance that the games aren't going to be played, the owners are like, why are we paying these guys for stuff that didn't happen? But then obviously the players should and would push back, and it would just be a whole mess. So I'm interested to see what they do with that, and obviously we'll know more about that in the coming weeks. So when there's any updates or any bad news on the players' end, we'll obviously discuss it when that happens. But after this break, we are going to come back and talk about if the Patriots should go into tank mode. Because obviously they signed a new quarterback. Not really a long-term answer, but they signed a new quarterback. Now, so we'll talk about who that is and why maybe they did that. Obviously with the departure of Tom Brady. But with that, and since like some of the losses they made, and obviously the teams in their division getting better, and the potential quarterbacks who come out next year in the draft, would it be worth it to kind of just tank this? I mean, not officially tank, but like to not put your best foot forward in terms to win as many games you can this season. Would that be a smart thing to do, or will they even consider doing that? I don't know. So we'll talk about that right after this break. So stay tuned.
Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
We are back presented by GSMC Podcast Network. So the Patriots have finally added a quarterback to their roster since the departure of Tom Brady. But it's not exactly a big name that many people expected. It is none other than Brian Hoyer, who signed a one-year contract. According to ESPN, the Boston Globe first reported the agreement. The source told Adam Schefter that Hoyer's contract with the Patriots is for $1.05 million. He is making $2 million from the Colts, who released him on Saturday. So with offset language, he will be making $2 million guarantees total this season between the two teams, and he returns for his third stint with the Patriots, joining a fourth-round draft pick Jarrett Stidham and fifth-year veteran quarterback Cody Kessler, or 5-year, I should say, veteran quarterback Cody Kessler as the three quarterbacks on the roster. Stidham beat out Hoyer for the number 2 job last preseason, which led to Patriots releasing him, and then obviously him being brought in to be the Colts backup. And Hoyer is 34, becomes the most experienced quarterback on the roster, has 38 starts, and should be a valuable sounding board for Stidham as the Patriots assess if the youngster could fill the void created by Tom Brady signing with the Tampa Bay Bucks. Still seems kind of weird to say. But yeah, so, like I said, it's not Cam Newton, it's not Jameis, it's not Andy Dalton, it's not, obviously it couldn't be Nick Foles, but I guess it could have been Nick Foles, but it's not going to be Nick Foles, so Brian Hoyer. So with that leaves them, like I said, it has Jarrett Stidham from Auburn, and then they have Cody Kessler. So, they have 3 quarterbacks on the roster, so where do they go from here? And what do they do with the season? They've lost guys, They lost Kyle Van Noy, they brought back McCourty. Maybe not still Stephon Gilmore. Lost Tom Brady, obviously, which is the biggest thing. I thought they might have lost another lineman, too. I don't remember exactly. I think Philip Dorsett's still free agency if he comes back. But yeah, so obviously, again, Tom Brady being gone, the biggest thing for them. So with that, it's like, all right, dude, they have a backup who at least knows the system, can help teach the system to Jarrett Stidham more. Obviously, he's been in the system for a year, but again, I don't know how much teaching Tom Brady was doing. It doesn't seem that's part of the reason why he didn't want Jimmy G around, because he wasn't really about helping coach his successor, if you will. So I don't know how much or how little Tom Brady helped out Jarrett Stidham this year, but obviously Brian Hoyer, being a career backup, will be more willing to fill that role if that's what they need him to do. But yeah, so with that, it's like, all right, where do the Patriots go? Do they go into the season with these 3 quarterbacks? Do they draft a guy in the draft, obviously in the draft, but they draft a guy this year at the quarterback position, obviously maybe not first round, but though, again, you never know with Bill. He may, if somebody slips, he may be willing to trade out for them. Do they wait around a little bit? Do they draft a guy later on, like a Jacob Eason or Jalen Hurts? Not Jalen Hurts, but like a Jake Fromm. Who else could be around? Anthony Gordon from Washington State. They like a Brian Lewerke or something from Michigan State? Shea Patterson came back. Do they go after one of those guys? Because obviously Jarrett Stidham wasn't a high draft pick, so it's like, do they just do that, and if they do they is it just going to be best man for the job? Do they have a penciled in starter? Is it just going to be every man for himself? We'll see. This is be a full on competition. We'll see whoever the best is coming out of camp, whether it's the rookie, whether it's the second year guy, whether it's the seasoned vet. It doesn't really matter to them. Obviously, you would think in theory they have a plan, but maybe they're just willing to be hey, we'll just see best man wins the job, and then obviously we'll go from there. Or should they just, like I said, just stick with what they have right now, keep these 2 quarterbacks, maybe bring in another guy in the late round, just obviously as a camp body, a camp arm, because you probably need 4 quarterbacks in training camp, though may not happen. We're already probably not going to get OTAs and mini camps and stuff like that, because there's no way all stuff's going to be cleared up by May for people to be able to work out. So that may be another reason why they may not want to do that, or maybe that's why they have Brian Hoyer come back if they do draft a rookie, just because they're not going to be able to bring these guys in to coach them up on the system. So if you have a guy that knows the system, then you can have him do that. Whether it's, like I said, it's hard to teach a guy things and explain things without being out there on the football field, especially if you're only using Skype or whatever app football teams use to communicate, whether it's FaceTime or, like I said, Skype, Zoom, Microsoft Teams, whatever it is. That's not like football, or most sports are taught best through demonstration and obviously being on the field. Like being on a phone call may not be conducive to that kind of success, but again, you never know. And obviously, if coaches can't get access to these guys, because the most they can do is call them, maybe they can have a guy like Hoyer go visit them if New England's not shut down, or I guess what, Massachusetts isn't shut down or in like full lockdown or whatever in a couple months. So maybe that's the reason why they brought a guy like him back, just because they know they may have limited access to these players, and thus they need a guy that can help coach them, and Brian Hoyer could be that guy. So if they choose to do that, even if they bring in a rookie, unless it's a high guy, if it's a high guy, then like a high round pick, then they're choosing to go with him. But if they don't do that, then do they just potentially tank the season? Now it's going to be hard because outside of Buffalo, who's going to be, they were a playoff team last year. They should still be pretty solid. They obviously got Stephon Diggs, which should help out their offense. Didn't lose too much on the defensive side. I know Shaq Lawson is one of the guys that they lost on that side of the ball. But yes, they shouldn't be that much worse next year. The Dolphins obviously were solid. I don't know if solid is not the right word. They played hard. Like, they didn't have as much talent as other teams, but they obviously won more games down the stretch. They beat the Patriots obviously week 17, which is part of the reason why the Patriots season ended the way that it did. So there's that, and then so you know they're not necessarily going to be a pushover. Then you got the Jets, who are the Jets, so you don't really know year to year where they're going to be. Because I thought they were going to be good last year, and then obviously the whole mono situation with Sam Darnold came up, and they were never really able to fully recover. And then who knows, they may lose their best receiver, and Robbie Anderson, if they're not able to re-sign him, so that would be an interesting situation to be in. But they try to revamp their offensive line, sign a bunch of different guys. Don't really know how good any of them are, but again, at least they're trying to protect Sam Darnold. Still got Le'Veon. Haven't traded Jamal Adams yet, so that's good. That's always a plus. When you don't trade your good guys. They just picked up, I think, Pierre Desir, who got cut from the Colts, who was a solid corner. So obviously that could help a little bit. So at least they're trying to do stuff to improve. No one really knows till you get on the field how it's going to look. But so maybe the division is not going to be. It's not the NFC West, but I don't think these teams are just going to be awful and just cakewalks. I don't think that's going to be. And obviously, with the Patriots not having Tom Brady, because they've been their biggest thing that they've had, in many people's eyes, including my own, the best quarterback ever to play the game, accompanied with the best coach. So now, if you just have one of the two, does it still hold up? Because it may not. That may not be a thing. That may, I don't know if the system works the same with Brian Hoyer or Jarrett Stidham running it. You don't know. So if that's the case, then boom, do you just tank? Or, you can't really tank. It's hard to tank in football. But do you unintentionally tank for the chance to be able to draft Trevor Lawrence? Alright, so you have one iffy season, not so great, post Tom Brady, to then have 20 more good seasons of quarterback play, potentially. Obviously, you don't know how Trevor Lawrence's career is going to end up, and maybe they don't get high enough, so they have to go with Justin Fields. Or when, like I said, the Joe Burrow of next year that comes up and kind of shocks everybody and is like all of a sudden in the competition for the number one quarterback off the board. We don't know. So I'm saying maybe there's a guy out there that they may be looking at for next year that they want to draft, and it may be like, all right, why waste the season if we know we're probably not going to get a guy in the first round? Now again, they could trade up because the Chiefs traded up quite a bit to get Patrick Mahomes, so and not impossible if they like a guy and obviously he slides or whatever. But again, if they choose that now we're not going to do that, we're going to save for next year, then all right. Then, again, one bad year might be worth it for 15 and 20 more years of good quarterback play. Now, I'm not sure if that's what the long game Bill is playing. Is that I don't think that may not be it. But if it is, I see the vision. I really do. I get it. Like I'm saying, if I can have one bad season, if there were a season where I'm 100% going to tank for a quarterback, it might be this year for Trevor Lawrence. and I'm not to knock Justin Fields. Justin Fields is very good in his own right. But again, if you believe the hype and the lore of Trevor Lawrence, again, he's been like the most highly touted prize guy since he was in high school in terms of like one of the best quarterback prospects to ever come in. Now, again, it was a little up and down this year. Started off the season a little slow, and obviously picked it up towards the end and didn't play that well in the championship game. So we'll see how he comes back this next year. But again, even with that, he's still probably projected to be the number one quarterback off the board, probably number one player off the board this time next year. So if that's the case, then maybe that's what the Patriots are looking to do. Like, hey, look, we could lose Tom Brady and be bad for like a season, and then get the heir apparent, and then boom, we're right back in business. Now, again, not to say that they'll just go back to winning Super Bowls and stuff with rookie Trevor Lawrence, but again, he did win a championship as a freshman over Alabama, so you never know. But yeah, so just like maybe that's the long game they're playing here. Does it seem like they had a plan with Jimmy G? Obviously, Brady and Kraft weren't having that. Which, I mean, if I'm Brady, I get. If I'm Kraft, I don't get as much because you're the owner. You shouldn't understand that Tom Brady is like a son to him, but should do what's best for the team, not best for what is best for one player. Because again, Tom Brady wasn't going to be here forever. Even if he stayed with the Patriots, he's going to retire at some point. He's not going to play for the rest of time. No, he may want to, but that's just not humanly possible. Then obviously now he's not here anymore, and they don't really have a complete. Now again, maybe Tom Brady and maybe Bill Belichick does have a plan, and obviously he's not going to tell us. There's no reason for him to do that. But outwardly, it doesn't seem like they have a plan for what their succession is going to be, unless they just really believe in Jarrett Stidham, which, I mean, teach their own. But yeah, if the plan is just be bad enough one year to draft their quarterback of the future for the next 15 years, I mean, I don't think that's a bad plan. Because my thing, I've always kind of thought this way on sports, is just like, if you're not competing for a playoffs and thus for a championship, then you should be trying to be as bad as possible. Like, being in that weird middle range where you're like 6-10, 7-9, 8-8, at least in terms of football, obviously the records are different in other sports. But if you're just trying to be in that middle range where you're like not good enough to be in the playoffs, but you're also not good enough to get like a top 5, top 10 pick, then I feel like that's kind of a waste. Because then if you're competing for the playoffs, you get to the playoffs, anything can happen. So, alright, cool. I get that. If you're not going to be that good, then you should try to be as bad as you can be so that you get the best players. Boom, that makes sense. Being in that middle range is kind of weird, which is why I think it's weird what the Chargers are doing, unless they think Tyrod Taylor can get them to the playoffs, which maybe he could. But I'm just like being in that weird middle ground, which is part of the reason why I think the Bucs moved on from James, because they were probably going to be in that weird 7-9, 8-8, 9-7 range, and maybe with an extra playoffs spot they could get in. But again, with Tom Brady, you expect him to win 9-10 games. That's a different division. We'll see how he plays outside the AFC East. But with Tom Brady, you expect to make the playoffs at least, and then what happens. You know what I'm saying? So that's why the Bucs do. They didn't want to be in that weird purgatory where you're like kind of like the Raiders are stuck in, where you're not really bad, but you're not really great either. It's just like a weird spot to be in, and that's like the worst. In my opinion, that's the worst spot in sports. Either be competing, or at least think you're competing, and obviously if it doesn't work out for whatever reason, it doesn't work out. But think you're competing, and you have on paper like a team that legitimately can compete, not like one of those like, oh yeah, we're going to be good this year. Like, no, like coming into the season, you know more or less what teams are going to be in the hunt. Now, teams can go up and go down. Obviously, no one thought the Ravens were going to be the 1 seed, but they made the playoffs the year before, so it's not unlikely they could have made the playoffs the year after. And obviously, teams like the Browns, people thought were going to be good, and obviously they dropped out. So it's one of those things. But if you're not one of those teams, like people knew the Dolphins were going to be bad, people knew the Cardinals weren't going to be that good. People probably knew the Giants weren't going to be that good. The Jets, people thought could be good, but probably not. Who else? The Broncos teams, people knew the Broncos weren't going to be that good. Washington probably wasn't going to be that good. So like, there's certain teams you knew weren't going to be that good this year. So you can tell, like, all right, they're not competing. They're going to try to win as many games as they can, but they're not competing. Then you have the teams like, you know, the perennial teams that were trying to vie for a playoff spot, whether it happened or not. It's a different story, but they were at least trying. So I'm saying, being that weird middle ground, it doesn't make any sense for me, and I don't think that's what the Patriots are going to go for. If they're not going to be competing for championships, then I think they're going to be competing to get the best possible draft pick. Or at least that's what I would do. Again, Bill may view it differently, but that's what I would do. I would try my best to get the best possible draft pick, and thus set myself up for the best chance to have sustained success post Tom Brady. So we'll see what happens with that. Like I said, I don't think they're going to bring in another quarterback before the draft. It shocked me a little bit. But again, the Patriots have done things that have shocked me before, so this wouldn't be the first time. So we'll see what happens with that. But again, I think taking for Trevor is the way I would go. But we'll see what the Patriots decide to do. So lastly, after this final break, we're going to come back and we're going to discuss the impact. We haven't really touched on this much. The impact that this coronavirus, COVID-19, is having on the college players. Because now, obviously, there's no pro days. There's no 30 in-person visits, so you can't, meet with teams the same way. Maybe you can, Skype them or whatever, but you can't, meet with them in person. And we're going to talk about how it's going to affect both, I guess not just the players, but also those teams and how that could affect their draft boards and all that stuff. Because it's it's unprecedented territory for everybody involved. So we'll talk about that right after the break. So stay tuned.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC, Invicta FC, Bellator, and One Championship. We got the fights covered. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
So, the impact on the NFL draft. Obviously, we talked about the NFL draft possibly getting postponed, maybe getting moved. It sounds like they're going to move it from the stage to a studio setting. Fine by me. The big theatrical production of it, not really that necessary, because again, you're just announcing players. You don't really need the whole song and dance with all that. But again, they like it. It makes for better television, so I get it. But it doesn't sound like, obviously, that's not the major concern this year. Just the fact that they're having it is more than enough for me, because, again, more stuff to talk about. Then obviously, I like watching the draft, and I like seeing new players come to the league, where they go, what teams end up on the teams that I like, or the team that I like, not teams. I don't like multiple teams. That'd be weird. But it's the team that I like, stuff like that. I like seeing that stuff, so I'm always interested. But yeah, so you were talking about that stuff just on overview, but just some more, break it down a little bit further on that level. Just obviously we've talked a lot, but if you've heard a lot about the whole aspect of social distancing and lockdown, staying in your home, don't really get on planes, all that stuff. And obviously that affects the regular person, but that affects the NFL prospect just as much. Just because now these guys can't be flown out by the teams. They can't come in person and meet with them. They can't talk with the head coaches, position coaches, GMs, make an impression on them. They can't go and do private workouts where you can see, all right, maybe there's something at the combine that you wanted them to work on because you saw, maybe if you do this or try this, you can be better at this. And now you can't see if they were able to work on that and how they took you see if they took the advice or if they just brush it off, and then obviously you could give them checks both either positively or negatively from the teams. None of that stuff's going to happen. Like I said, no pro days, so there's guys that weren't at the combine that won't be able to test or showcase their speed or their agility or their route running hands, their fluidity through drills, stuff like that. So that hurts them. So now these guys that could have been late round picks are probably going to end up going undrafted because, again, these guys just won't have anything more than film, and maybe the film isn't that great. Obviously, there's a lot of people that up their stock through the combine pro day process. That obviously won't be the case this year. I'm sure you're just stuck on the games, you're stuck on like any sort of like Senior Bowls, East-West Shrine game, or the combine. Really, that's the last time you'll be able to see these guys in some sort of workouts. So that's unfortunate for some guys. Obviously, some guys left a good impression from the combine, but other guys didn't. They wanted to improve on that at the pro day, and now they can't. So obviously that's going to affect draft boards because, again, you don't have the chance to prove yourself and bump that back up unless you had an early pro day, which, obviously some people were able to have their pro day before everything got shut down, but not everybody could. And obviously one guy that didn't was Tua, who was going to be able to showcase how healthy he was, but now he can't do that because he's not having the pro. Supposedly they're going to try to film a private workout and send it out to the teams, but obviously that's not the same as being able to see it in person because, again, this could be edited, could be doctored to make Tua look better. Not to say that Alabama or his agent or his team as a whole wouldn't be honest. But again, I don't know if they're going to send them like the raw footage, like the whole feed, or if they're just going to send them like video of it. So again, you could make it so to make Tua look better than he was, and obviously you can't like talk to him, you can't interview him in person. You can't run him through your own drills and workouts to see what kind of things you want to test him on. So that obviously hurts him to a degree because now people can't see how healthy he is. And obviously they can't even come and give him a physical because, I guess maybe they could if they do like it from like wherever he's staying at, a doctor from there. But again, maybe I don't know if that's going to be allowed. We'll see what happens with that. And then also, like I said, with the no in-person visits, the no 30 pre-draft visits from the teams, though I know some teams were able to do like 1 or 2, but that's not that much. Or did they bump it down this year? Or I think it was supposed to get bumped down in the CBA, like the number of visits, whatever. I forget. The number might not actually be 30, but it's like the pre-draft visits that now aren't going to happen, and obviously can give guys a chance to either propel themselves up move themselves up the draft board, or move themselves down. And now teams, like I said, if you don't have that, it can be easy to put on a show and a phone call, even a FaceTime, but you can't in person. You can see their mannerisms, you can see their body language better, you can see the way they react to things, the way they interact with people. And then that's not going to be the same over a phone interview, so that it may cause teams to pick guys that may not be the right fit for them. And obviously that will then be an issue for the teams later on down the road. And also, like I said, that can affect the process, because again, there may be guys that they may not even meet. Obviously they didn't meet with, but they haven't really had much communication with at all, that they're going to end up drafting. Which, that happens every draft. It's not like that new. But again, you would think teams want to do as much homework as they can on guys when they're going to end up being a part of the organization. Now, they can't do as much homework because they can't come in and meet with guys and have them go through their workouts or whatever. So that's going to be a big change for these teams, and just see how they handle that. Because obviously that's a new thing. That's not like something that normally happens. So you got to see how teams are able to handle that, and if there are any mistakes or concerns that the guys have after the fact, and that could have been resolved through these pre-draft meetings. So yeah, it's interesting. Then obviously it hurts. Like I said, it hurts the bottom guys. So you can see there might be guys, maybe not exactly an elite or high level prospect, may not go in the first couple rounds, but you could potentially be like a late round preferred undrafted guy. Like you come in, you meet with them, you may not have the measurables, you may not have the speed or the experience that some of the other guys have, but you really like him as a player. You guys make a good bond. The position coach likes him, whatever. And then those guys end up being potential undrafted free agents, late round picks, what have you guys you're willing to take a chance on, just because you have a strong feeling about them. Now, you're not going to be able to have that feeling, because again, at best, you're doing Skype or a phone call or something. I don't even know exactly how the process would work. Like I said, that those situations aren't going to happen this year. So then it's just like that kind of hurts. Like I said, it hurts those smaller school guys, just because now you're missing out on that opportunity and trying to kind of separate yourself from the rest of the pack. Obviously, a lot of that can be done on the field through your play, but also some people really shine in meetings. They really understand football on a deeper level. Maybe they don't have the athletic ability but they understand they can draw it up, they can talk about it, they can discuss it, that kind of stuff. Like, and obviously that stuff can be demonstrated through a phone call, but in person, you can really feel that energy, that, or if you whether that you can really see the way they process things and understand things. Maybe, I mean, it's hard to draw on a whiteboard in a meeting just because, I mean, in a phone call just because like maybe the connection's bad, they're in and out, it just sounds weird, as opposed to when you're in maybe the phone's not by where they're drawing the thing up, so they can't really hear you that well. It's just like there's like weird aspects of them that are going to be different for this time around. And also maybe it's just like if teams hit on it this way, will that kind of change the way in which they do scouting? I know a lot of people have talked about how the world's going to be different from this, whether it's like more people being able to work from home, just because more companies realize that people can work from home. A lot of the stuff they do in the office is just because they feel like they're forced to come to the office. They don't really need to necessarily be in the office to do their job. So that people saying like that, whether it's like the more community aspect of it, of post, like I know a lot of people in general just kind of look out for themselves and their family or whatever. They don't really worry about what's best for the next person. And maybe that's something that may change through all of this. I mean, you never really know how the world's going to change and develop, but this could be an aspect of that. Like maybe the way scouting is done may change if teams realize that, all right, maybe we don't need to scout players this way or put players through these different type of tests to be able to find good players or find the type of players that fit in our system, in our culture, stuff like that. Maybe we don't need to do it that way. Maybe the way we've scouted players in the past, that we thought, all right, we needed to put them through this, this, and this, and then we come up with this, and this is the guy that we want, and that hasn't worked out. Maybe they'll try something new this time and see like, all right, maybe we should try things this way. So it'll be interesting to see from a team perspective just how if it changes anything going forward. If they're just like, all right, this is just like a one-off thing and we're going to go back to doing what we normally do after this, or if this is like, hey, we were able to accomplish certain things or get to know players in a certain way through this avenue or through this means that we didn't use before. And can we use that more going forward? Just one of those things. Like I said, what's going to be different for better or worse after this. And like I said, I don't think sports are exempt from that. And obviously maybe the way scouting is done, stuff like that, maybe different than it was this time last year. And maybe that'd be a good thing, maybe that'd be a bad thing. I don't know. We really won't know for a couple of years. But all I know is this draft process will be unlike any one that we've seen. In terms of, like I said, there's no pro days, no private workouts, no pre-draft visits, all that stuff. It's going to change the way draft boards are set up. It's going to change the way big boards are set up. It's going to change when people get drafted. Just because, again, your people or players that maybe will have been able to showcase things that would have got them pushed up are not going to be stuck at that same spot and maybe get pushed down over somebody that has like more film or somebody that worked out at the combine or somebody you were able to talk to at the combine, stuff like that. And there's a lot of guys that don't, not a lot, but there's guys that don't get invited to the combine that can still make NFL rosters. And now, like I said, you won't have that chance to meet with some of those guys. So just unfortunate for them, those players, and obviously it's unfortunate for those teams not to be able to make those connections and with those players to be able to see like who's the right fit. Obviously, like I said, you can understand that stuff from a phone call. A lot of jobs have a phone interview aspect of the hiring process. But not every job is all phone interview. Like usually, at least a lot of companies, they want to at least meet you in person once just to see how you interact with people, stuff like that. And that you can't really always showcase that over a phone call. But hey, we'll see. Because like I said, this process is going to be different. The world we're living in, this situation is different. This is not something unlike anything most of us have ever seen in our lifetime and probably will ever see in our lifetime. Though, I mean, if you listen to, I haven't watched that pandemic show on Netflix, but I was just kind of just like them talking about how like there's a big pandemic coming and that they were trying to be ready for. And I don't know if this is the one. This may just be a test one. I've heard that as well. That this is really the test one. And if it is a test, we're not. I mean, we're like part of the way through, but not exactly off to the greatest start. I got a few wrong in the beginning, trying to play catch up on the second half of the test. And maybe we can catch up and get a passing grade, or maybe we're going to fail. But again, at least this will be something we can learn from moving forward and be better prepared when something like this were to happen. If something like this were to happen, whether it's now, whether it's in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, or 100 years, like it seems like every 100 years is like some sort of big pandemic, virus, plague, something that happens right around like the 20-year mark into a new century, which is like kind of odd. But yeah, like I said, things will be different after on the backside of this. And how different, no one knows yet, but things will definitely be different. But yeah, that'll do it for me here again today on the GSMC Sports Podcast, presented by GSMC Podcast Network. I want to thank you guys, as always, for taking the time out of your days to listen to me talk about what is going on in the sports world. Obviously, this is a weird time we're living in, but we're going to get through this together, guys. So don't you worry. But yeah, so like I just wanted to say, remind you guys always. I mean, not as always, but remind you guys again. Social distance. If you're sick, stay home. Don't go out with friends. Don't go to work. Isolate, quarantine, wash your hands, don't touch your face, all the regular doc stuff you've been hearing. And yeah, the sooner you do that, the sooner we'll be able to go back to resuming our normal lives, or semi-normal lives, hopefully. Obviously, I'm not a doctor, so I don't know when this is going to end, but it seems like the sooner we buy into the stuff they're telling us, the sooner we'll be able to go back and do what it is that we want to do with our lives, as opposed to being told what we can't do. Because obviously where we're at right now is we're doing a lot of things. We're being told a lot of things that we can't do, and you have to do those things. So yeah, I think it was my dad used to tell me this, and I think it was we were somewhere. I don't know if it was Troy Vincent or somebody. It was giving a speech, and it was like the phrase he left with was like, "Do what you have to do, so that you can do what you want to do." And this is the scenario we're in. Do what we have to do, which means like isolate, stay at home, minimal contact, only go to the stores that are essential. Like I said, wash your hands, quarantine if you're sick, all that stuff. Don't go to work if you feel sick, or even if your job's still open, because not everybody's job is open. So do what you have to do, which is that, so that we can do what we want to do, which is like enjoy our summer, be able to watch sports again, be able to go outside, hang out with friends, go to bars, restaurants, and live a normal life again, because that's obviously what we all want to get back to. But the sooner we do what we have to do, the sooner we'll be able to do what we want to do. But yeah, so hopefully that'll come sooner than later, but we will see how it goes. But like I said, I want to remind you guys, if you haven't already, subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you never miss an episode. Make sure you're always on top of when we drop our latest stuff. If you could please as well, give us a 5-star rating, write us a nice review. Be very appreciated. And also, if you're on social media, we are on social media, so you can find us there, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We can talk, we can chat, we can discuss, we can debate. Obviously, a lot of people are using social media at this time because a lot of people are home. So, it makes sense. So, yeah, if you're on there, reach out to us. We can talk through some things. We can debate some things. You can talk about things you want to hear on the show, things you'd like for us to touch on, talk about, all that fun stuff. We are more than willing to communicate back and forth with you guys. But yes, I've been Chris Blades. That has been my time. And until next time, peace out.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.